When RFK Jr. was busy trying to testify in front of the Senate, Senator Tom Kean decided to grill him over an issue that had nothing to do with his nomination as the HHS secretary.
It's hard to tell what is conspiracy theory and what isn't. I'd like to introduce that for the record, Mr. Chair. We take that kind of stuff pretty personally. Virginians know what happened on 9/11. And we don't need folks giving oxygen to conspiracy theories about 9/11. Now, one thing I noticed about this post is it was in July of 2024. It was 23 years after 9/11. You had a lot going on in your life. You were running for president then. What made you decide in the midst of everything going on in this country, in this world in July of 2024 in your own candidacy for president, that now was the time to say it's hard to tell what is conspiracy and what isn't about 9/11.
Now, Senator Kean didn't want to read that tweet, so I'll do it for you. It states, "My take on 9/11. It's hard to tell what is a conspiracy theory and what isn't. But conspiracy theories flourish when the government routinely lies to the public. As president, I won't take sides on 9/11 or any of the other debates. But I can promise is that I will open the files and usher in a new era of transparency." Now, you tell me, what's exactly wrong with this tweet? Did he say anything offensive? Did he in any way dishonor the memory of all those innocent souls lost on that terrible day? The man just promised to be transparent so that the public can once again start trusting our already crumbling institutions. I mean, there are still millions of people living in this great country who would love to know more about what happened to Building 7.
Here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself.
Describe that.
Now we go to videotape the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the third time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
Or what about the fact that we used this massacre as an excuse to start wars that made companies like BlackRock extremely rich and powerful thanks to their investments in the defense industry? Now, to his credit, RFK took this low blow like a champ and gave a very eloquent response to this dumb question.
My father told me when I was 13 years old, he said, people in authority lie, and that the job of a citizen in every democracy is to maintain a fierce skepticism.
Okay, I get it.
Government authority.
And you're an authority, but you wouldn't take sides on 9/11, and you're admitting, I have a hard time telling what is a conspiracy theory and what isn't.
Senator, I haven't investigated it. If the things that I investigate, I take sides on. People are allowed to hold that opinion. I'm not going to tell them they're crazy for holding that opinion. I'm going to say, what is your evidence? And if I hear the evidence, I'm going to say that doesn't make any sense.
Now, if you're wondering why the Democratic senators had to bring up 9/11 in this hearing, well, they just couldn't break RFK Jr. on any of the other subjects.
When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression, all of these things that are related to toxics in the environment? Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside, and say, we're going to end this? We need to figure out ways to improve care, particularly for elderly, for veterans, for the poor in this country. And Medicaid, the current model is not doing that. I would ask, any of the Democrats who are chuckling just now, do you think all that money, the $900 billion that we're sending to Medicaid every year, has made Americans healthy? Do we think it's working for anybody? Are the premiums low enough?
Now, while we are talking about our corrupt healthcare system, I would like to show you a video I saw that gives us a very different perspective on Luigi Mangione.
So let me get this straight. Luigi Mangione is born into a wealthy family, attends a 40,000-year private school, becomes valedictorian, earns a bachelor's and master's in computer science by 26, no criminal record, no psychological red flags, well-dressed, photogenic and handsome, active on social media showing vacations abroad with beautiful women and family, looks beyond well-adjusted and is thriving, landing an internship and building a resume that screams total success, spends his free time exploring transcendence and the self, whilst working the professional world showing no signs of instability, has all the hype of another rising tech star in his field, then all of a sudden, disappears from his friends and his families for 3 months, only to return to kill the United Healthcare CEO. None of this is adding up because in reality, we actually have an assembly line system to procure new so-called radical right-wing extremists simply by choosing whose brain to fry via psychedelic alchemical dumping at the drop of a hat. And has the same feel of Ted Kaczynski, who was MK Ultra brain fried as a psychological operated fed to distract us from what is truly happening on center stage today.
Now look, I'm not going to tell you that I believe everything this guy is saying, but I would like to share a couple of strange things about Luigi's case. I'm sure you guys remember how the guy was on every single news channel for a few weeks consistently, and these channels were happy to talk about him because of the overwhelming sympathy people had for him. However, for some reason, the media stopped reporting on him overnight, as if someone flicked a switch and Luigi became someone you couldn't talk about. And I'm glad I am not the only one who noticed this.
One of the most interesting observations I'll make of the Luigi Mangione case, as someone who scours the news daily, is that once there was sort of this uproar and support for the person who committed those acts, remember he has the presumption of innocence, once the comment sections were flooded with basically a Robin Hood / Ned Kelly / folk hero vibe, we stopped hearing about him. Why would they stop talking about someone who clearly knows how to, it would sell papers in circumstances where once they discovered people had his back 2,000%, they would basically back right off. Because that's not my experience with the press. My experience with the press is if it sells papers, we're going to push it. We're going to push it. We're going to push it. We're going to be there. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it till you're sick of it.
This kind of change in media attention makes me think that there is way more to Luigi's story and they just don't want us to dig into it. Also, how can we just forget that 2 veterans who served at the same base also exhibited strange signs before committing violent acts on the same day only a month ago?
And you know, to understand that we're all grieving about this. This wasn't the man I knew. This wasn't the father, the son.
Yeah. You said he woke up and made you breakfast on the 26th as well.
Yeah. He made me breakfast in bed. Took care of our daughter in the morning.
So yeah, something does seem fishy with this Luigi radio silence. But while we are talking about the guy, I would like to tell you how he might just walk free.
New York City, we're talking a lot about jury nullification. Now here's the important thing. This is where people get tripped up. Jury nullification is where a jury, despite the weight of the evidence in a case, decides that something unjust or bad or wrong is happening, and so they give a not guilty verdict because they are the fact finder. They make the ultimate decision that is binding, right?
So basically, Luigi can go free if the jurors decide that his crime doesn't deserve any punishment. However, this also means that the jury selection would be very strict in order to make sure that no one sympathetic to Luigi gets to decide his fate.
If someone hypothetically is interested in doing jury nullification, they can't talk about it. They can't talk about it to the other jurors. They can't talk about it when they're getting questioned in voir dire.
That's probably why people are making videos like this one to explain why they are eligible to be on that jury.
Look, I know that he hasn't even been indicted of anything. There hasn't been a trial. But for when that trial happens, I just want the state, the city, whoever's prosecuting that man to know that I love the police. I think that what that man did was a heinous crime to a CEO that, quite frankly, is one of many who built this country and made it what it is. And If on that jury, I would definitely send him to jail for the maximum amount of time and maybe, even push for the death penalty. I would totally do all of that. Put me on the jury! Come on!
I personally think it would be kind of funny if he goes free. However, if he really was brainwashed or set up by some deep state agency, I don't think he'll ever be free again. Now, moving on, I'd like to talk about this debate on income tax and tariffs. I'm sure you've seen what our president plans to do. The media is more than happy to show how Donald Trump's plans might harm us in the future. However, they aren't very keen on telling us the history of tariffs and income tax. So I really want you guys to see this video that might open your eyes to how they've been robbing us.
People are waking up to the fact that the federal income tax didn't exist the first 137 years America was a country, but they're still missing just how much it was designed to screw regular people in favor of banks and international corporations. You see, the 16th Amendment established the income tax, as in it gave the government the power to tax, but didn't levy one. It was the Revenue Act of 1913 that imposed the first income tax under the 16th Amendment. It was a 1% tax on rich people because they told people it was only for the rich. You see how they do this stuff? But it also did something else. It lowered tariffs from 40% to 26%, marking a shift in federal revenue policy. The income tax was about to replace tariffs as the government's primary means of raising revenue. So this was the average tariff rate by decade dating back to 1860, 20 to 30% on average. But the income tax would change that because, as you could see here, it wouldn't be long until they essentially got rid of tariffs. The government now owned your labor. They could take your money. So they no longer required revenue from international corporations. And before the income tax, American manufacturing was the envy of the world. But it allowed the government to stop protecting American businesses with tariffs. And now, China reigns supreme.
Look, the simple fact is that people would be more than happy to pay those income taxes if they had received things like adequate and free health care. But we all know that money always goes towards other things.
The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has thanked Joe Biden and the US Congress for a new military aid package, which is worth more than $8 billion.
The U.S. State Department also announced an additional $20 billion in arms sales to Israel for fighter jets, missiles, and tank ammunition.
Now, don't get me wrong. Both parties have a habit of sending our hard-earned money to other countries. And if you think they're going to stop overnight, you're living in a fantasy world, my friend. So it might just be better if we used tariff money to pay companies like Lockheed and Vanguard instead of American taxpayer dollars. Now, another story I'd like to share with you guys is the one about Diddy, who was rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night to get an MRI, apparently. According to the sources, he was taken to the Brooklyn hospital last week because of pain in his knee. Look, convicts go for hospital visits all the time. It's no big deal. But this isn't some ordinary criminal. We all know what kind of people are associated with Diddy. Those people are already beginning to feel the consequences of their actions.
This message is for you, Ellen. You. Just want to talk for a second. So we never really got any answers. You remember your girl right here? Miss Ann Hayes? What did she know about you? And don't get me started on stuff like this. I can only say so much on this platform right here.
That was going on the other side of the vehicle. Oh my God. He's completely alive. What the hell?
But at the time of the crash, this is what the Daily Mail reported, okay? Was able to speak to firefighters, yada, yada, yada. She was talking to us at the time. We were able to pull her out. Is now said to be in stable condition at the local hospital. Her family has confirmed this. Then, not too long after Ellen, these right here start coming out. She is brain dead. Now, how did that happen? When she was up talking, I'm guessing she knew too much, just like he probably knew too much, huh? Enough's enough, though, man. All these games, dipping and dodging and not answering people. Just respond. Let us know. Did she know something or not? And then we'll get on to the other ones, okay?
We also know that we have a history of high-profile traffickers dying mysteriously. So there is a chance that someone might use illness as an excuse to silence Diddy before he ends up spilling the truth. So if anything, I think this story should be more viral to make sure this evil man faces real justice and doesn't just get deleted before we find out the truth. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I would love to know the names of all those woke celebrities who were doing heinous things with this guy. I want to share a video with you that perfectly encapsulates why California has become such a failed state.
The mayor of LA has just announced that she's suspending the city's all-electric building code for people who want to rebuild their homes after the wildfires. The code was introduced in 2022. It means that for any new home, you cannot use any gas appliance. No gas stoves, boilers, heaters, nothing. It has to be all electric, which is much more expensive, thousands of dollars more expensive in many cases, and puts demands on the electric grid, which already can't cope. But she's saying it's okay, we're suspending it, but only for those people who are trying to rebuild after the wildfires. And the question is, if you're admitting that this all-electric nonsense is bad for the people who are rebuilding now after the wildfires, because it's hassle and cost and a nightmare, and you don't want to be micromanagey, why are you still micromanaging? Why are you still applying it for everybody else?
I mean, Steve is raising a very fair point here. If you know that the all-electric building policy is a hurdle for people who just want to build a home, then why introduce it in the first place? And if you really believe in your environmental agenda, why would you remove this policy now instead of helping people build all-electric homes? Well, the answer is simple. She didn't remove this policy so normal people can rebuild their homes again. She did it just so the real estate developers face fewer problems in their land grab campaign. And while all of this is going on behind the scenes, there's yet another fire in California.
Okay, so we're all looking up in the sky on the East Coast. This is what's happening down on the ground on the West Coast. What the freaking is going on anymore? This is getting absolutely out of control. I'm losing my words. So toxic black smoke, they're under a health advisory over there. They were under shelter in place. I think that's been lifted at this point. 6 workers in the oil refinery were injured. I have not seen anything about anybody dead. Thank God. I can't find how this fire started, but it's just reminding me of all of those train derailments that were 2 years ago, I think, where like everything was just exploding left and right and toxic whatever the was in the sky every day, everywhere.
Now, the fire chief has said any smoke that burns, any combustible element is going to be toxic at some point. We're going to ascertain right now what exactly is in that stream of smoke. So let's just hope there isn't some toxic chemical in that smoke, because we definitely don't want this to turn out like East Palestine, Ohio. And now here's a quick message from today's sponsor. The United States of America has confirmed its 47th president. Donald Trump is sworn in. His stated goal is to drill, baby, drill, unlocking this nation's vast riches. In February of 2021, right after Joe Biden took office, the market cap of Giant Mining, U.S. ticker BFGFF, was around $100 million. Today, Giant Mining has a market cap of $16 million after plummeting 84%. Just a few days ago, Trump told House Republicans he plans to put tariffs on aluminum, steel, and copper. In his recent speech, Trump said he would impose tariffs on aluminum and copper, metals needed to produce U.S. military hardware, as well as steel to entice producers to make them in the United States.
But I'll also be placing tariffs on steel, aluminum, and copper, and things that we need for our military. We have to bring production back to our country.
Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF, is sponsoring today's video, and I want to show you why the same company that owns a copper, silver, gold project in the state of Nevada is 84% cheaper than in 2021, even after hitting its best ever drill intercepts in September. On November 15th, a major bill passed the House of Representatives. It's called the Critical Mineral Consistency Act, and it will go to the Senate next. Number 1, critical minerals are essential for our economy. The United States must ensure access to a reliable supply, said Arizona Congressman Juan Ciscomani. Ciscomani, the sponsor of this legislation, explains that the goal is to fortify commodities logistics domestically and include copper, electrical steel, silicon, and silicon carbide on the critical minerals list. Number 2, this vote highlights copper's essential role in powering America's energy future, said Copper Development Association CEO Adam Estelle. Number 3, The legislation specifically ensures copper mine projects are eligible for the Fast 41 permitting process. Giant Mining owns a copper project in the world's #1 mining jurisdiction, Nevada, situated in the good old US of A. In the past 4 years, management and the company's geologists have actually expanded the copper deposit, and this past September, Giant Mining hit their best ever drill hole. BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto, two of the largest copper producers in the world, are warning that copper supply cannot possibly meet the future demand from artificial intelligence and the construction renaissance in the US and China. Meanwhile, the share price of Giant Mining, whose flagship copper, silver, gold project in Nevada is called Majuba Hill, has depreciated from $4.20 on January 13th, 2023 to only 30 cents today. Historic underground mines at the Majuba Hill project produced copper, tin, and silver from the early 1900s to the 1950s, including 2.8 million pounds of copper, 184,000 ounces of silver, 5,800 ounces of gold, 21,000 pounds of tin. I will say this again. All of these factors and the following ones below are the ones that led to my significant bullish opinion about Giant Mining. The infrastructure is ready. Access roads, power supply, transportation, water supply, ore stockpiles, processing space, processing plant. Preliminary discussions within the Trump team shows they want to bring back to the United States, the people said. Those include the defense industrial supply chain through tariffs on steel, iron, aluminum, and copper. Giant Mining just hit their highest grade hole to date from surface down to 218 feet. Surface high grade at Majuba with 74 feet of 2.6% copper and 30.1 grams per ton silver within 218 feet of 1.35% copper and 73.4 grams per ton of silver. The Majuba Hill Copper Gold Silver Project is situated in Nevada. Therefore, when I combine the following, pro-business administration, new minerals legislation to include copper as critical, the looming supply shortage, and the fact that Giant Mining's share price is already up 100% since Trump's inauguration, I am ultra bullish. Now, let me know what you guys think about this Luigi situation. Do you think they fried his brain to create panic and hysteria, or is he just some guy who took matters into his own hands? Feel free to share your thoughts with everyone in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.